Hey, I have a question for you today. Have you had the thought that you might want to start a business or do something different, get out of the corporate um, struggle that you might be in, or just a rut, or just too much sameness? And you think you're too old, you have these hesitations because you think you're too old to start a business? Let's talk about that today because I help people who are, I call them shoulder season Gen X as well as baby boomers, so late 40s, early 50s, on up to find that pathway, to find that new path. And that's what we call a second chapter, or some really bringing that dream to life that they might have. And perhaps you felt like that sometimes. You think, oh, maybe it's just too late, or I don't have the experience. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey because I like to share some of my story because, well, for one thing, for a long time, I kept it very much under wraps. I didn't talk about it at all. I was way too much in the shadows with it. But really, the benefit to me sharing the story is that the work I do now with my clients is a reflection of my own journey. And so, and because I know what it felt like, because I've done all of those things that you might be thinking about if it's like too late kind of a deal. So, um, to shorten this up a bit, I didn't grow up with any particular kind of advantages for starting a business or any encouragement for that, any experience with that. Didn't see that in my family. As a matter of fact, in my family, when I was growing up, there were lots of money problems. I clearly remember the days of bill collectors pounding on the door. Yes, it was still legal then, or a car being hauled out of the driveway that was being repossessed. All kinds of things that really felt very financially unstable, and that led to lots of mindset issues, lots of old beliefs that I had to overcome, and that's a whole other topic for another day. But I did not have any particular encouragement or belief that I could do anything, and my family was so disruptive and disorganized and dysfunctional, all of the disses, that I literally went out a bedroom window when I was 17 years old. I had an old car and I drove myself to Seattle from where I lived in Federal Way, Washington, and went to court, got myself emancipated at 17 so I could make my own decisions, and just started working at whatever kind of job I could find to keep body and soul together. And really, I was just in survival mode for so many years of my life. Ended up married, typical story, not a good relationship, had two children, and only ever worked in clerical jobs. I was a food server, I was a daycare provider. I was one of those people that made all the lists of how much money there is and the too much month at the end of your money, all of those kinds of things. Lots of anxiety about money, and lots of really not understanding that I could really accomplish much of anything beyond just the very basic, what was expected as far as clerical work and that type of thing. So fast forward into my 40s, I ended up homeless over a domestic violence scenario, very traumatic, ended up on national television over it. And really, that was the beginning of realizing I had to make a decision about whether some of these challenges of life were going to stop me or propel me forward. And I somehow even then understood that it was a decision to be made. And so I made the decision that it was going to count for something someday, even if I didn't know yet what or how or when. And so that's how I continued forward through a very extremely traumatic and frightening time in my life for myself and my two children. Literally, we had to run for our lives in that scenario, and then ended up in a homeless shelter, a domestic violence shelter. So again, fast forward, I met my amazing husband, Ron, and we just supported each other emotionally. Neither one of us had 2 cents to rub together. We're going through a real tough time in life, and we just kind of supported each other in this process. And one thing and another led me to doing promotional tours for ad agencies, this type of thing. And we went on the road with things like Got Milk and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And what I learned from that was really how to read people, how to engage people in conversation, because we did these promotions for big ad agencies that they were free. They were entertainments for the public just to get eyeballs on whatever the business was, right? And from the pharmaceutical company to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to Got Milk, did a tour for them. And I got very, very good at being able to read what would draw people in, be able to see something about them that I could engage them in conversation. And so we did that for a while, but it was very tough physical work, big setups that were heavy, stages, television screens, and transporting a huge specialty vehicle. I did all the driving. My husband's legally blind. And one thing and another, it got to the point where I was like, wow, this is like way too much. And I've got to figure out something else to do to support us. So at this point, We were living in an old mobile home in Yuma, Arizona, nothing fancy, green shag carpeting, plastic sinks, that kind of a mobile home. And I sat down at the computer and I started looking for an idea of what could I do? What could I do? And I stumbled upon an article about copywriting. I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of it. I'd never written anything for anyone a day in my life, unless you consider secretarial work. I'm writing a memo, that type of thing. Editing my kids' papers when they were in college, that I would give them advice on how I thought it could be structured better. And I just knew, I just had this overwhelming sense that I could do this. So I went to my husband, like, I think I can do this. I think I found a solution, but we didn't have any money to get started with. So I did what any sane person would do. And with my husband's blessing, I sold our house. We literally sold this old mobile home. And somehow I knew even then to sell the view, because that was the main thing that had going for it. It had an unobstructed view of a golf course, some mountains, some cactus, beautiful sunrises, the glow of the sunset on the mountains. That was what it had going for it. So I went down to the Thrifty Nickel, the free newspaper. Said, I want to run an ad for our house, and I would like to put this photo in. When I looked at it, I was like, that's a picture of a view. Don't you want to put a picture of the house? And I was like, nope, I'm going to sell the view. So lesson number one, I understood to sell a result for the person buying the house, right? And that's what we did. I wrote an ad for it, didn't pay any attention to the pricing of the other mobile homes around us, came up with the price that we wanted for it that would help me start my business. And that's what we did. And the first person that came to look at it bought it. And when they did, they were standing in the driveway with me, and there was another car that had pulled up at the end of the driveway that was wanted to look at the house. And I just looked at the car and said, they're here to look at the place too. And they said, we'll take it. And they bought the place. That's how we started the business. Okay, here's the thing. I was already past 50. Okay, no experience, no money to speak of. Found a way to do it because it was that important to me. But when I work with clients, I find so many are saying, is it too late? Is it too late? Well, really, it's only too late if you don't start now. But let me give you some actual statistics about this. I was reading an article in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce publication, and it basically, I'll just quote from it: don't give up on that great business idea, no matter how old you are. People who start businesses in their 40s, 50s, and even into their 60s typically succeed as well, if not better, than younger entrepreneurs. And they were drawing on a study that was done that found that those that were 50 and beyond succeed roughly the same rate as people that were in their 20s. A lot of times we think startups, 20s, Silicon Valley, hot shot, whatever. And that some of us, those of us past 50, well, maybe we're just like out of step, too old, whatever. But the statistics actually showed that an entrepreneur starting at age 53 is as likely to be successful over time as someone in their 20s. And I've seen other statistics that say even more so. And another recent statistic I looked at was that the vast majority of businesses were being started, entrepreneurial businesses, were those from Gen X and baby boomer. And so that's our shoulder season, Gen X and baby boomers, the late 40s on up, 50s, 60s. So I was in my 50s. And the thing that makes the difference of being able to do this, there's so many factors, but today I just want to talk about a couple of them. And one is really believing, really committing to the thing that you're going to do. Even if you're not sure about the how yet, making that emotional commitment, the mindset shift that does not allow anything else to get in the way of that commitment. And that might mean distancing yourself from some folks, not sharing that dream with certain people, not allowing the negativity to come into your head from someone else, because there are many people who do not have a belief that this is even possible. And certainly I've had plenty of people say, well, how did you do what you did? Because I had no website, I had no experience, and I had to start gathering some kind of education for myself on this. So lifelong learning comes into this. And really at the beginning, I only knew kind of barely how to write what we would call a sales letter. I didn't know how to write email sequences. There was a lot of stuff I didn't know how to do, but I had this burning commitment to do it. And I don't know, I think some of that was divinely given, really. I call it my divine assignment. I think everybody has one. And I think it just opened the door to something completely new for what I was starting to do. And so I just had to learn as I went. And I did, as I said, at first, I didn't even have a website. And that first year, I did multiple six figures. And So I've had people say, well, how do you think you did that? And when I really thought about it, because I certainly had my ups and downs and, my doubts along the way, but what I had was, and what I recommend that you think about for yourself, is really there was no other option. Failure, not doing it, was not an option. It was I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it work, because something deeper than just right here was saying, calling me forward, this is the thing that you need to be doing. I wonder if you've ever felt like that. Have you ever felt that kind of pull to do a new thing? There's so many people that have been in corporate jobs, traditional jobs for so long, and just feel exhausted, burned out, unappreciated, marginalized, patronized, compartmentalized. And the ageism definitely comes into play. Just try going out and applying for a job in your 50s or 60s or 70s, right? And so the security actually of becoming entrepreneurial is greater than just staying in a traditional job. Look what happened with Meta, with Facebook, how many people they've laid off, what's happened in Silicon Valley, what's happened with banks closing, things that people thought, well, that's not going to happen. So where was the security for anyone with that? And so I believe the best investment you could ever make is in yourself. And so whatever you need to do to follow a path, to do that next step, that's what is entirely possible. And I'm here to tell you, because I was the most unlikely success story ever. I mentioned I started off, we sold our house. So what did we do? Well, we had an RV. We had an older fifth wheel and a pickup. And I said, we're going to live in that. I have lots of stories about this, but we decided we're going to live in that. We'll figure out how I can work from that, how we'll have internet. And things have advanced so much, because that was 18 years ago. Okay. And that's how long I've been at this. And so things have advanced so much with technology. So many things are so much easier. But I just want to show you what I have now for a mobile office, because I had an old kind of beat up fifth wheel in the truck then. And so part of the dream of creating a business at that point was so that we had lifestyle freedom also, so that we could do what we wanted to do and not be tied to a job that was like 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 8 to 8 or however long the day might get. Not being a commuter, not having to go to an office, all of these things, and really having being able to combine your dream with lifestyle. And I think that's one of the goals. This is our my customized mobile office. We had it completely redone when we got it. It's a heavy duty Freightliner truck chassis, so it looks like a semi. It's 45 feet long. I tow a lime green Jeep Rubicon behind it. We designed all the custom paint job for it. I have a flying goddess hood ornament that I follow when I'm driving. Yes, I do all the driving. Husband's legally blind, and I can work from anywhere. In this was part of the reward, part of the joy of being entrepreneurial. What would that look like for you? Maybe that's not your dream, but what is? And what would you like to be able to accomplish? So I just really want to encourage you that it is not too late. If you're approaching 50, if you're past 50, if you're going to draw on your previous expertise in a particular niche market, or maybe you're going to do something entirely new. Maybe you've outgrown what you've been doing. Maybe you've had a very successful business and you're ready to sell it or have someone else run it while you pursue a new dream. And that's really what this is all about. Our lifespans have increased to, it's not unusual. People live to 100. My mother lived to be 100. And, it used to be 60s. That's kind of it, That's how Social Security was designed in 1935. It was designed for a lifespan. It was only around 61 years. They didn't think you'd even make it to 65. Well, now that's 75 is now considered the new kind of middle age, right? So there's still so much to do, so much energy that we have, so much expertise we have. And I just want to encourage you that if you're looking for a new pathway, that second chapter, go for it. Think it through, feel into it however you do that, with meditation, with prayer, with research, but don't not do it if you feel called to it. It's entirely possible for you to be able to create an amazing business. Really what I did, whether it's, for me, it was copywriting. For you, probably something entirely different. But the point is, it changed our lives, my husband's and my life, my family's life. And even more so, it has changed the lives of those I work with, the people that I serve, the clients. And to have that as part of your legacy, to know that you can have that kind of impact and that you can grow and continue to be active and mentally alert and agile and able to serve in such a way that makes a difference to even one person in the world, it's really worth it. So that's what I've got for you today. If you have any questions, I hope you'll reach out or put your questions in the comments. Happy to answer them for you. And I look forward to talking more about this with you. And I would love to hear your questions about this. Okay, so exactly what's that next step? That's what I'm here for. We'll be happy to help you with that. And until next time, have a wonderful rest of your day. And even better, have an inspired life. Hey, folks, thanks for sticking around. If you'd like more of this great content, check out these videos on the page. And if you're new here, be sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And I'll talk to you again soon.